My name is Quinn Baxter. I'm 32 years old and I own one of the most sought-after interior design studios in Ann Arbor. People call my work elegant, successful, inspiring. But success doesn't erase the past. It only makes the memories hit harder. When important guests came over, my parents made me eat in the garage. They said I embarrassed the family. I was 8 years old, sitting on a cold metal chair under a flickering bulb, listening to laughter and clinking glasses from the dining room while I picked at my food alone. That wasn't a one-time thing. It happened for years. Every time their rich friends visited, I became invisible. The daughter they hid so no one would see the cracks in their perfect picture. Now, at 32, my phone won't stop ringing. Numbers I haven't saved but still recognize. I let it ring while I stand in my office overlooking the city, watching my team finish another multi-million-dollar project. My hands stay steady on the desk, but inside, everything tightens. Because the same people who once shoved me into the garage now want back in. The same people who chose their image over me. They see what I've built. They see the success they never thought I could reach. And suddenly, they want to talk. I haven't answered yet. I just keep letting it ring, letting the silence stretch longer than it ever did for me. Tell me right now, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments. I want to know how far this story reaches before I open the door to everything they did. Back then our life in Ann Arbor looked exactly like the kind of family people envied. We lived in a 2-story colonial house with a big front yard and a mailbox that always matched the season. From the street everything appeared polished and successful. My father, Roger, worked as a regional manager at a logistics company downtown. He left early and came home late, always talking about targets and promotions. My mother, Janet, didn't have a job outside the house, but she worked full-time on our image. She planned every dinner party, chose every outfit, and made sure our Christmas cards showed perfect smiles. Her older sister, my Aunt Marion, was the one who opened doors. Marion had money and connections. She frequently brought her rich friends to our house, people with big homes in Bloomfield Hills and summer houses up north. Those visits were the most important nights for my mother. I was the middle child. My older brother Tyler was 4 years ahead of me. He made straight A's, played travel soccer, and always knew what to say to adults. My little sister Erin was 3 years younger, all curls and giggles, the kind of child strangers stopped to compliment at the grocery store. And then there was me. I was quieter. I read books in corners and asked questions that made my mother press her lips together. Whenever Aunt Marion called to say important guests were coming, the rules changed. My mother would pull me aside and speak in that tight voice she used when she was trying not to get angry. Stay in your room tonight, Quinn. These people don't need to see everything. Sometimes she was more direct. Don't come down. You embarrass the family when you stand there not smiling. The garage became my regular place on those nights. While Tyler sat at the table telling stories about his latest game and Erin charmed everyone with her drawings. I sat on the old metal folding chair next to the lawnmower. My plate rested on a plastic storage bin. I could hear the laughter through the wall, the clink of real wine glasses, and my mother's bright voice giving tours of our remodeled kitchen. I learned to eat quickly and stay quiet so no one would come looking for me. It wasn't just the parties. At school events my mother always stood with Tyler on one side and Erin on the other. I walked a few steps behind. When family photos were taken, she positioned me at the edge or behind taller relatives. You never stand straight, she would say afterward. You make the picture look off. Tyler received new soccer cleats and private coaching. Erin got dance classes and new dresses. I got hand-me-downs and the reminder that I should be grateful for whatever was left. My father rarely argued with her. He would pat my shoulder and say, listen to your mother, she's trying to help all of us. He kept his focus on work and on keeping Marion happy because her connections helped his career. The three of them moved through the house like a team with a clear plan. I felt like the extra piece that didn't quite fit the picture they were building. Still, there were moments when the house felt warm. Saturday mornings when my father made pancakes and Erin laughed so hard milk came out her nose. Those mornings made me hope things could stay that way. But the good days grew fewer as I got older. I started noticing the bills piling up on the counter. I heard my parents whispering after bedtime. My father began coming home later than usual, and my mother started checking the mailbox before anyone else could reach it. One evening I walked past their bedroom and heard my mother say money was tighter than she had told Aunt Marion. My father answered that they couldn't keep pretending forever. Their voices carried that same heavy silence I would later recognize too well. Something was shifting under our perfect surface, and I already sensed that when the cracks finally showed, I would be the first thing they let go. Then the cracks became impossible to hide. My father lost his job first. The company said it was restructuring, but everyone knew the economy was tightening. Roger came home earlier each day with tighter shoulders and shorter answers. Bills stacked higher on the kitchen counter. My mother stopped inviting people over and started selling things quietly on the side. Aunt Marion still called, but her tone changed. The rich friends who once filled our dining room now felt farther away. Money troubles turned into arguments that leaked through the walls at night. I heard my parents talk about choices they didn't want to make. One evening they sat Tyler, Aaron, and me at the kitchen table. Their voices were calm in that careful way adults use when they are about to break something. They said the family needed to make adjustments. They said it was temporary. They said both of them still loved us. What they really meant came out later behind closed doors. My mother told my father they couldn't keep carrying everything. Tyler needed to stay on his sports teams to keep his scholarship chances alive. Aaron was still so young and needed stability. Then my mother said my name. She said I was the one who could be placed somewhere safe for a little while until things improved. My father didn't fight hard. He only nodded and mentioned how expensive everything had become. 2 days later my mother packed a small suitcase with my clothes. She didn't fold them neatly. My father drove. The car ride was quiet except for the sound of the heater struggling against the Michigan cold. When we pulled up to the Children's Services building, my mother knelt in front of me and adjusted my coat even though it didn't need fixing. "This is just for now, Quinn. Until we get settled." My father signed papers without looking up much. Neither of them cried. Neither of them turned around when they walked back to the car. I stood on the sidewalk holding that suitcase and watched their taillights disappear down the street. I was 8 years old. The first placement was a house on the edge of town run by a couple who already had 3 other foster children. The woman at the front desk gave me a careful smile and showed me to a room with 2 bunk beds. The mattress cover made a plastic sound every time I moved. That night I kept my shoes on under the blanket because I still believed they might come back before morning. The other kids didn't talk much after lights out. One boy stared at the ceiling like he had memorized every crack in it. The next morning I sat near the window in the common room. I watched every car that pulled into the parking lot. None of them were for me. The caseworker, a woman with soft sweaters, asked me about my favorite foods in school. She never asked the real question hanging between us. Breakfast was oatmeal that tasted like paste. I ate it anyway because I didn't want to cause trouble. When I finished, I carried my bowl to the sink like the other kids did. Days blended together. I learned the rules fast. Make your bed tight. Keep your things in the locker. Don't ask when your parents are coming. The house smelled of disinfectant and old laundry. At night the plastic mattress cover still crackled, reminding me where I was. I pressed my fist against my mouth so no one would hear if I cried. I didn't want to be the new kid who still hoped. By the end of the first week the caseworker came to talk to me again. She said my parents were working through some things. She said they would be in touch soon. But when she thought I wasn't listening, I heard her on the phone in the hallway. Her voice was low and professional. She mentioned my name and then said the words that settled heavy in my chest. The family had not made any contact yet. No calls. No visits. No updates. That sentence taught me the difference between waiting and understanding. You might wait forever. The system moved me around. One house after another. Each new placement came with new rules and new reasons why I didn't quite fit. Some homes had too many kids and not enough attention. Food disappeared from the refrigerator before dinner ended. I learned to keep a small stash of crackers in my backpack just in case. Other places had stricter foster parents who watched every move. In one house I was told I spoke too little. In the next they said I asked too many questions. No matter where I landed, the message stayed the same. I was temporary. At the dinner table I often found myself on a folding chair at the end. The biological kids sat in the good seats. When visitors came, the foster parents would smile and say I was part of the family for now. But their eyes told a different story. I became very good at disappearing into the background. My clothes stayed in the black trash bags they gave us during moves. I never fully unpacked. Unpacking meant believing I would stay. The comparisons cut deepest. Tyler and Aaron were still out there living their lives. I heard pieces of information through distant relatives or old neighbors. Tyler made the honor roll again. Aaron won another dance competition. Meanwhile I sat in schools where teachers gave me pitying looks when they learned I had no home phone number to list. One foster mother liked to remind me during chores, "You should be more grateful." Not every girl gets a second chance after her own parents walked away. She never raised her voice in front of others. She saved the sharpest words for when we were alone in the kitchen. I stopped fighting back. I stopped explaining myself. Silence became my armor. I kept my head down, did my homework, followed every rule even when it felt pointless. Quiet strength grew inside me like something hard and necessary. I learned that showing pain only gave people more targets. So I swallowed it and kept moving. Then one afternoon during my sophomore year everything shifted in a small way. My high school offered a vocational program in design and construction. They needed volunteers for a community project restoring an old library building. I signed up because it got me out of the house on Saturdays. That was where I met Mr. Harlan Reed. He was a retired architect in his late 60s who volunteered to teach basic interior principles. Mr. Harlan didn't speak much at first. He simply handed me a measuring tape and showed me how to read blueprints. He taught me how light changes a room, how fabric and texture tell stories, how careful planning could turn something broken into something beautiful. For the first time an adult looked at my work and said, "You have a good eye for balance, Quinn. That matters." I started staying late after the program ended. I borrowed books from the library about furniture design, color theory, and spatial planning. In the quiet of study hall I sketched room layouts on notebook paper. The drawings felt like control. Something I could shape when everything else kept changing around me. By the time I turned 16 I had completed 3 different school design projects. Teachers began noticing. Mr. Harlan pulled me aside one day after class and said I should consider this seriously. "Not everyone sees spaces the way you do. Don't waste that." His words landed differently than anything my own family had ever said. They didn't come with conditions or comparisons. They felt real. That night I lay on another temporary bed and made a quiet decision. I would chase this path no matter what it took. I would learn everything I could about turning empty rooms into places that felt safe. Because if no one else would give me a home that lasted, I would learn how to build one myself. I turned 18 and aged out of the system with a duffel bag, a folder of documents, and a scholarship to the local community college. No one threw a party. No one offered advice about what came next. I simply signed the final papers and stepped into a small shared apartment near campus. The first 2 years were a blur of survival. I took design classes during the day and worked 3 part-time jobs. Mornings at a coffee shop, afternoons helping with inventory at a furniture outlet, and evenings cleaning office buildings. I studied floor plans and material samples between shifts. Every extra dollar went toward books and fabric samples. Sleep became a luxury I scheduled like any other task. That was when I met Lauren. She worked the evening shift with me at the outlet store. She had a sharp eye for color and zero patience for excuses. We started talking during slow hours and soon became inseparable. Lauren was the first person in years who saw me as more than a foster kid trying to get by. She pushed me to enter small local design contests and dragged me to thrift stores looking for vintage pieces we could repurpose. A year later I met Ryan. He came into the coffee shop every morning for a black coffee and stayed to read blueprints for his architecture classes. Our conversation started simple and grew careful. He never pressed for details about my past. He simply showed up when I needed help carrying heavy samples or fixing a broken drafting table. His steady presence gave me room to breathe. The early business attempts were small and uncertain. I started with weekend pop-up events at local markets, offering affordable room makeovers using whatever materials I could afford. My first freelance project was redesigning a tiny rental apartment for a young teacher. She cried when she saw the finished space because it finally felt like home. Word spread slowly through campus groups and neighborhood pages. I took every job that came, even ones that paid almost nothing, because each one taught me something new about lighting, flow, and what people actually needed from a space. There were months when rent was late and I ate instant noodles for dinner. My bank account dipped dangerously low more than once. Lauren helped me create a simple website. Ryan reviewed my contracts. I worked until my back ached and my fingers cramped from drawing. But every completed project built my portfolio and my confidence. By 27 I had saved enough to open my first real studio in a converted warehouse space on the west side of Ann Arbor. It was small, with exposed brick walls and imperfect lighting, but it was mine. The first 6 months were terrifying. Clients were few and payments sometimes arrived late. I questioned my decision almost daily. Then came the breakthrough. A local university professor hired me to redesign her home office after seeing my work at a market. She posted photos on her professional network. Within weeks, inquiries doubled. One of those leads turned into a full house renovation for a tech executive moving to the area. The project appeared in a regional lifestyle magazine. For the first time, strangers began reaching out specifically asking for Quinn Baxter. That magazine piece led to my first television interview. The station wanted a short segment about young entrepreneurs in the design field. I almost turned it down, but Lauren convinced me to go. When the segment aired, something shifted. Messages started coming in faster than I could answer. People wanted to know more about my approach and my story. I sat in my small studio that evening staring at the growing list of requests and felt the weight of every late night and every doubt I had carried. The attention was only beginning. Success arrived faster than I expected once the momentum started. By the time I turned 32, my company occupied an entire 3-story office building on the east side of Ann Arbor. Clean lines, natural light, and a curated showroom on the ground floor welcomed high-end clients who flew in from Chicago and Detroit. We handled full residential renovations and corporate projects for executives who valued both beauty and function. The waiting list grew long enough that I had to hire a full team of designers and project managers. One evening a major lifestyle network asked for a longer interview. They wanted the complete story behind the rapid growth. I spoke carefully about building something lasting after an unstable start. The segment aired and spread quickly online. Clips circulated among design circles and beyond. Within days the inbox filled with inquiries from new clients and invitations to speak at industry events. That exposure reached the people I least expected. Aunt Marion saw the interview first. She still moved in the same wealthy circles and apparently recognized my name immediately. From there the news traveled fast. My mother Janet called the main office line 3 times in one morning. My father Roger left messages with my assistant. Tyler sent a text that simply read, "We need to talk." Aaron reached out through social media with longer messages full of memories I barely recognized. Even Aunt Marion sent a carefully worded note mentioning how proud the family felt. The calls and texts kept coming. Unknown numbers lit up my phone throughout the day. Some messages sounded concerned. Others carried that familiar mix of nostalgia and urgency. I listened to a few voicemails and felt the old tightness return to my chest. Their voices had changed with time, but the timing felt too convenient. That night after the team left, I sat alone in my office and opened the old folder I had kept sealed for years. Placement records, school transfer forms, and notes from caseworkers stared back at me. I read through every line without emotion, reminding myself of the facts. This was not the child they had once pushed aside. This was the woman who had built everything without them. I thought about the little girl who used to wait by windows that never brought the right cars. I thought about the nights I taught myself not to expect anything. The success surrounding me now felt like proof that their decision had not defined my ending. Still, part of me needed to see their faces. I needed them to understand what they had actually done. The next morning I told my assistant to stop taking their calls. In the afternoon I sent a single reply to the group. I offered one meeting at my office building after closing hours on Tuesday. Neutral ground, on my terms. No one else invited. No family dinners or pretend reunions. Just them and me in the space I had earned. I spent the remaining days preparing. I reviewed timelines, gathered documents, and steadied my breathing. The quiet strength I had built over years felt solid beneath the surface. Whatever happened next, I would face it on ground I controlled. Tuesday evening arrived. I stood by the large windows overlooking the lit parking lot and waited for their cars to appear. They arrived just after 7. I watched from the second-floor window as their cars pulled into the empty parking lot. My mother Janet stepped out first, clutching her purse. My father Roger looked smaller than I remembered. Tyler and Aaron followed, with Aunt Marion closing the group. I unlocked the front door and let them in without a word. We sat at the long conference table in the main presentation room. The space was quiet except for the low hum of the air system. No one hugged. No one smiled. My mother spoke first, her voice softer than I expected. She said life had been difficult, that mistakes were made in the chaos of losing everything. My father added that he had been overwhelmed and ashamed. Tyler mentioned he never fully understood what happened back then. Erin cried quietly and said she only learned the real story much later. Aunt Marion stayed mostly silent, watching me carefully. They apologized in layers. They called it temporary. They called it survival. Underneath the words I heard what they really wanted: financial help for my father's medical bills, business connections for Tyler. A way for my mother to repair her social standing, and perhaps some reflected success they could claim as family. I let them finish. Then I placed a thin folder in front of each of them. Inside were copies of placement records, school transfer documents, and medical notes from years of moving between homes. My hands remained steady as I spoke. You didn't lose me, I said. You chose to leave me. I sat in houses where my clothes stayed in trash bags. I ate at tables where I was reminded daily that I was not real family. I taught myself not to expect phone calls or birthdays or any sign that I still mattered. While Tyler played sports and Aaron danced, I learned how to disappear so I wouldn't be a burden. I told them about the nights I practiced silence because showing hurt only invited more cruelty. I described the years of building this company from nothing while carrying the weight of believing I was the problem. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply laid the truth between us like evidence on the table. My mother's face crumpled. My father stared at the papers without blinking. Tyler covered his mouth. Aaron wept openly. Aunt Marion looked away. When I finished, I made my position clear. I will not give you money. I will not fund treatments or businesses or lifestyles. I will not pose for photos or help repair your image. This meeting is the last time we sit in the same room unless I choose otherwise. From today forward, there is no access to me or anything I have built. My father tried one last time, mentioning his health. My mother reached for my hand but stopped when I didn't move. Tyler asked if there was anything they could do to make it right. I told them the only thing left was to live with what they had done without expecting me to carry their guilt. They left quietly. No dramatic scenes. Just the sound of chairs pushing back and footsteps fading down the hallway. I locked the door behind them and stood alone in the dark building I had earned with my own hands. In the weeks that followed, the consequences settled in. My mother lost standing in her social circle once the full story quietly spread among the same rich friends who once visited our house. My father's health struggles continued without the support he had hoped for. Tyler missed out on several business opportunities when potential partners learned about our family history. Aaron sent a few messages expressing regret, but I kept the distance. Some wounds cannot be rushed. I did not feel triumphant. I felt clear. Today I continue the work that matters most to me. A portion of every project goes into a foundation that helps young people aging out of foster care with housing, job training. and design scholarships. I built it because no child should have to become extraordinary just to survive what adults failed to protect. The little girl who once ate alone in the garage still lives inside me. I protect her now. I give her the safety and respect no one else did. Family is not proven by blood. It is proven by who chooses to stay when staying is hard. I have forgiven enough to sleep at night, but forgiveness is not an open door. Some bridges stay burned for good reason. And that is okay. If you are watching this and carrying similar pain, know this: you are not the extra piece. You are not the embarrassment. You are the one who gets to decide what kind of life you build after they leave. Build it well. Build it for yourself. And never apologize for protecting the child you once were.